Hmm. They did a really good job in the comics. Although I don't even know how they're going to bring some of the characters back. They're pretty much the important characters in the member of the Guardians. And how in the hell did they brought back Thanos from the grave? I guess it got something to do with that one comic book they did where it's supposed to be like the final story of the Guardians, and it involves Thanos and the Silver Surfer. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for another multi-voice entertainment. I am the multi-voice reviewer, aka Michael Graham. I have many voices, but one opinion. And today, I got something to review for now on, ladies and gentlemen, since I know that some of you have enjoyed my Asian month on June and my video riffs I've been doing. Sadly, my last one they said that it was blocked in other countries that cannot be watched, so I had to trim it, and they pretty much cutting it down to 4 minutes, and that pretty much cut off most of the jokes I made for that movie, which pretty much pissed me off. I just hope that's not going to happen again next June if I decided to do riffs on two more Starman videos, or probably I just go back to the Asian month and review something Asian, I guess. I just want to try something different and new, okay? But anyway, and I hope some of you are enjoying your 4th of July, our Independence Day. And I know some of you are thinking, how come I never reviewed Independence Day? I haven't watched the movie all the way, so maybe next 4th of July I'll probably review Independence Day. But right now, there's another science fiction movie I want to talk about, and this one involves Bruce Willis. I've heard that Bruce Willis is suffering with dementia, so he's kind of dying. So it's kind of sad. Hey, wait a minute, this ain't June anymore, so why am I wearing this shirt? Time for me to get back to my science fiction review that I always do. Every time I wear this shirt, it's something science fiction. But anyway, folks, and of course, I know some of you did watch my video I made on both Facebook and YouTube, where I talked about how pissed I am at people asking me to get in the Bitcoin or Cash App. It's how I feel. I hate it when people ask me to get into something that would guarantee I'll win money, which I gotta say that's a lazy thing to do. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get back to the review, shall we? Since Bruce Willis is suffering dementia, I think it's time for me to review something that I loved watching, and it was one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, starring Bruce Willis in it. A lot of people would say it's like a Die Hard in space. If it was Die Hard in space, he would have kept on saying "Yippee ki sucker!" That's my Bruce Willis impression. Come on the call, let's keep it together, make a few laughs. Now I know what a TV dinner feels like. Everybody just loved those lines. But the movie I'm going to review for you today is, of course, Fifth Element. What can I say about The Fifth Element? It was created by a French director who goes by the name of Luc Besson. Luc Besson. I hope I got his name right. And I'm going to explain more about him after I'm done talking about this review. What this science fiction movie is all about is about that it all starts with a scientist, a professor who is studying the hieroglyphics. I mean, it started back in 1914, where there was a professor and his student making notes on his finds, and his assistant is voiced by Luke Perry. Well, not voiced, but played by Luke Perry. And every time when his assistant keeps dozing off and losing the light, he always yells, "Azim, light!" And of course, Luke Perry making a score on how many times he says, "Azim, light!" But the priest was planning to poison the professor and his assistant because they're getting into something that they shouldn't discover. But from out of nowhere, out come these aliens who are called the Mandushawan. The Mandushawan. They decided to go into Egypt and get what they need because it's not safe on Earth. They need to take it somewhere else. And of course, the priest promised them to take the key for the tomb in case it's time. And now, 300 years later into the future, we have our president, who is black, not Obama, but played by Tom Lessard Jr. Now, I gotta say, his performance as president is way better because he's more subtle. I mean, most of the movies I've seen him in, he always played the tough guy, somebody you don't want to mess with or make fun of, or else he'll kick your ass or tear you apart. But it was the first time you ever see him play a nice guy and a president for the first time. And he meets upon a priest who goes by the name of Cornelius. And Cornelius is played by Ian Holmes, the same guy who played Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Ring movies. And of course, assisting the president is, of course, General Monroe. General Monroe, played by Baron James. Now, they start realizing that there is this big glowing orb, a giant planet-sized fireball, and it turns out that it is the source of all evil. Like, according to the professor from his hieroglyphs, he says that there is a great evil upon the land who will come over and wipe us out from existence. And their last hope is, of course, 4 elements, stones that represents the elements, and all of them combined creates the 5th element. But when this evil fireball, it got to one of the military soldiers, and all of a sudden, black blood start oozing out of their foreheads, like he's digging into the dark side of himself, and was destroyed. So they summoned back the aliens, the Mandu Sharin, to come over to bring the 5th element and the stones. But sadly, a group of evil aliens who calls himself the Mangalore, showed up and start killing all those Mandu Shawans. Destroyed every single one of them. And then it cut to Bruce Willis's room, which is Corbin Dallas. That's his character. Corbin Dallas, he was a former military man who retired from the military and now lives his entire life as a taxi driver. And try to go through his usual routine, being a taxi driver, picking up passengers, taking them to wherever they had to go, even though he owes some rent to his boss named Fingers. While at the same time, General Monroe, the general and a scientist, they found a piece from the wreckage of the ship where the Mangalore destroyed, they found a piece of the fifth element. So what they're going to do, they have a machine that they can take the DNA material from what they found from the wreckage and make a full body and bring it to life. While at the same time, we start meeting our villains. Our villains, who goes with the name of Zorg, played by Gary Oldman. Now, unlike the president, they wanted to save the world from that evil orb, but it turns out that Zorg is working for the evil orb, so he wants Earth to be destroyed for his own profit, because he's a businessman and an arms dealer. While at the same time, the military and the scientists did took the remains of that fifth element and made a body. And it turns out that the fifth element is none other than Lilu, played by Mila Jovovich. Now, here's one thing I was kind of surprised of here. Mila Jovovich, one thing I know from her that she's from the Ukraine. And she speaks in this ancient language, which behind the scenes you can tell that the director and Mila Jovovich, they both made up their language and use it for the movie. So they both studied their own made-up language for the movie, but they also do say it among themselves. And that was during the time when Mila Jovovich was dating Luke, the director, for a while, until their marriage was short-lived. Now, when Mila Jovovich escaped from the lab, she was trying to find a way to escape until she landed right on top of Corbin Dallas's taxi, and that's where Corbin Dallas meets Lilu for the first time. And a bunch of cops starts chasing after them, so he always keeps finding ways to escape from them with his beat-it-up taxi cab. And he started asking her that she needs to see a doctor, but she says she needs to see a priest. So they went all the way to meet Cornelius. And he was like, I'm sorry, I don't do weddings, but congratulations. And he said, I'm not married. She fell on my cab. She has no idea or nothing, but he had a tattoo. And he saw the tattoo on her arm, and that's when Cornelius said, Fifth element! Tile drop. And of course, he fainted. So he had to wake her up. And of course, he called his assistant David for help. And when Corbin Dallas kissed her while she was out, she pointed a gun right in his forehead and kept repeating, Nyatokama, Nyatokama, whatever that means. And of course, Corbin Dallas introduced himself as Corbin Dallas and asked her who she is, and that's when she said Lilu. And it kind of looks like that Corbin Dallas starts falling in love with her. What do you expect? It's a 90s movies. Every 90s movies, they always have the hero fall in love with the girl. I don't make up the stories. And of course, Corbin Dallas gets a call from his mother, who always acts like a real pain in the ass. Always made him so miserable. So now, the next day, he talks to his Chinese chef named Tai, who is cooking food for him. Cooking Chinese food for him. And he got a letter from his mail, and it's from his boss. And he sent it to Tai, and Tai read it, said, "You are fired! Oh, sorry to hear that. Oh, please forgive me. Warning. If you think I'm being offensive, I'm not. I just memorize the way how actors talk, okay? I'm the multi-voice, okay? I can mimic other people's way of talking. So don't ever call me prejudice. I mean, you're talking to a guy who's dating a Filipino girl, and I'm learning Tagalog. But anyway, from out of nowhere, Zurg was making an arms deal with the Mangalore, and he asked him, do they have the stones? They gave him an empty crate. The stones are not there. And he just yelled to the leader of the Mangalore, going like, what do you have? I'm looking for 4 stones. You see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 stones. 0 stones, 0 case. What do you want me to do with an empty case? But of course, he made a deal with them and gave them brand new high-tech weapons that he invented. And then he wanted the Cardinal to show up. He wanted Cornelius to show up in his place. Now, Cornelius said, you're a madman. He said, I know. And even showing him all this techno stuff that he has. He may want Earth to be destroyed, but he says there are other ways to do it. You have robots, machines, things that can clean up any kind of damage that happens around us. And then he grabs himself a cherry, put it in a glass of water, sips it, starts choking over the cherry, and try to let one of his machines get the cherry out of his throat, but the priest saved his life by whacking him in the back of the chest, getting the cherry out of his mouth. And here's the thing. In most action films, you always see the villain and you always see the hero, but the villain and the hero never meets. Because that's one thing about this movie. You don't see Bruce Willis talking or meeting Zurg at all. So I guess you don't hear Bruce Willis saying this to Gary Oldman. Yippee-ki-yay, Zurg. I'm sorry, I just love Die Hard. I mean, the reason why I'm not reviewing that movie because I reviewed it like a couple of Christmas ago. But anyway, a bunch of cops is trying to arrest Corbin Dallas, and turns out that there are 2 people with unknown names. They went to his place and asked him, you, sir, are you human? And Bruce Willis said, no, I'm a meat popsicle. But when they asked the other guy, would he specify it as human? He just went right in front of the door and says, smoke you! And of course, Bruce Willis says, wrong answer. And that's when they captured the wrong guy. And of course, the general showed up and asked him to do the mission to go to Fluxum Paradise and try to save the world, because he's their last hope to save the Earth. And they rigged the contest so he can go to the Fluxum Paradise. It's like a space cruise. So, he took the mission. Now him, Lilu, and Cornelius, they end up in the Fluxum Paradise, and there we meet a sort of a pop star named Ruby Rhod, played by Chris Tucker. Now, here's a little known fact, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that that character, Ruby Rhod, they wanted Prince to play him? The late, great, formerly known as Prince, play Ruby Rhod? Well, I do see the Prince style with a bit of a Dennis Rodman hairdo. I'm sorry. His hairdo makes me think of Dennis Rodman. Okay? But one thing my grandma did tell me that she cannot stand is the character's screams. I mean, he does a lot more scream than any female actresses in a sci-fi film. I mean, he screams so loud, even my grandma says that she likes to walk into the movie and slap him right in the mouth to shut him up. And then they were going over to meet the diva. Now, the diva, she's a blue skin alien with a tentacle on her head and on her arms. And she started singing, while at the same time, the Mangalore started hijacking the cruise. So Lilu starts doing some kung fu fight towards those Mangalores, because she figured out they're the ones who killed those other aliens that she was in. And then Zurg showed up, and he detonated a bomb after he grabbed another case where they assumed there were another stones. And when the Mangalore showed up, there was, the Mangalore showed up and started taking over the place, and they shot the diva. And the diva was played by Ma Win. Bear in mind, this is a French name, and I couldn't pronounce the I with the 2 dots on the top. But she was really amazing doing the singing and how the song was played, the way how she sang it. And believe it or not, she was also the director's other wife. He wanted her to appear playing the diva in the movie. And after she gets shot, she knew what's going on. She knows about the fifth element, and even told Corbin Dallas, aka Bruce Willis, that she needs him and his love. And he asked her, where are the stones? She said, the stones are in me. So it turns out that stones are neither any of the cases, not even the one that Zurg took. The stones are inside her. So he had to dig inside her stomach and get the stones out of her. And then he meets this officer, goes by the name of Fogg, played by Lee Evans, British comedian. And Bruce Willis says, we need to find a leader. Those Mangalore cannot fight without a leader. And then the leader showed up and says, we're here to do some negotiation here. And that's the leader. Anyway, he want Fogg to yell out, we're going to send somebody over here to negotiate. And Bruce Willis showed up, shoot the leader right between the eyes, and he says, anybody else want to negotiate? And Fogg says, does he ever negotiate like that? And even the president said, I wonder. But anyway, Lilu did some more research through the computer because she was asleep for like over 3,000 years, so there's a lot of history she needs to learn. And she was really shocked to see the wars that we went through throughout history in our planet. And now they went back to Egypt, where the temple was at. They put the stones there, and they decided they're elements. They're trying to figure out a way to turn them on until David, the assistant, blew on it, and that there is wind. Connect the elements with the elements themselves. Wind to wind, fire to fire, earth to earth, water to water. So one blew on it, other one wiped the sweat off his face and poured the sweat on the water element, and the other one picked up the sand, put it on top, and then bam. But Ruby Rod, he doesn't have any fire. He doesn't have any matches or lighters or anything. But Bruce Willis does. He has one match left, and he told them to hold their breath. And then there, the fire's on. Now he has to ask her what to do, and he finally told her that he really loves her. He really loves her so much. And then, bam. And meanwhile, the big fiery orb, it's starting to turn into a meteorite, and it's about ready to hit Earth. So, with the elements on, and she shoot a huge flame, a big light out of her, and it hit the ball, and now that ball has turned into another moon. So that was it. So the president was trying to congratulate Dallas, but he's in a sun room with Lilu. And as a scientist looked down to see what they're doing, he was shocked, and he's trying to tell them that they're kind of busy right now, if you know what I mean. And of course, Dallas gets a phone call. The general starts answering it. It turns out it was Corbin Dallas's mother. So the president was like, "Give it here, Mrs. Dallas. This is the president on behalf of all of us." And the woman interrupted him, saying, You don't sound like a president. The president's a moron. You don't sound like a moron." And goes on and on and on. And that was the end of The Fifth Element. I have to say, Fifth Element was a really, really good movie. And a little known fact: the director and screenplay writer Luke, he said that he wrote the story of The Fifth Element since he was 16, while growing up in France, in Paris. Growing up in France, not in Paris. And believe it or not, most of the inspiration of his design and his story came from that sci-fi comic book series that they were made in Berlin, except it was all French, and it is the one I mentioned before, the Valerian comics. He said those were his inspiration for the whole design and everything. I think I should get myself a graphic novel of Valerian. Check it out myself. Who knows? And I already did the review of the movie, because when he told people that most of his ideas of The Fifth Element came from the Valerian comics, people told him he should do a Valerian movie. And of course, I reviewed the movie that he made. So, if any of you ever seen my review of Valerian, I would send you the link when this video is over. And I still think it's the best movie ever made, and I don't care what critics says. They don't even know a good movie come and bit them in the ass. And of course, one thing they did do, they did a video game of The Fifth Element for PlayStation 1. But sadly, it wasn't a good video game. That's the thing about video games these days. If it's a video game adaptation based from a movie or a show, they're not as good. There are a few of them that are good, and others are just terrible video games. So I have no interest of getting the video game of The Fifth Element and try it myself, because it'll probably suck. Hell, I was suckered into getting a video game of Blade, and it was hard as hell. I didn't even beat it or anything. The game sucked. And, a little known fact, this was supposed to be a part of a trilogy. Yeah, Fifth Element was supposed to be a part of the Fifth Element trilogy that he'd written. So, after this, I don't know what else that he had in mind. What was going to happen next? Does Corbin Dallas marry Lilu and another evil alien showed up? Or something got to do with time travel? Who knows? But to me, Fifth Element was a really good movie. And this is my review of The Fifth Element of today. If any of you like this review of The Fifth Element, please leave a comment down below. Hit like and subscribe for more. And stay tuned for more reviews, or maybe I'll do a riff. Who knows? I got a lot on my mind, got lots to do, and less time to do them. So, I'm the multi-voice reviewer. I remember it so I can jog your memory.